Hey guys, like the name of the show suggests, we've had a lot of people who call themselves kings and queens throughout the show. Most of them are really, truly terrible, but some had promise. I want to take a look at each of these self-proclaimed kings and see who was the best out of them. And in a future video, we'll look at, well, who's the worst. So we're going to look at all the kings who are alive in the show. For the record, we have Robert Baratheon, Joffrey Baratheon, Tommen Baratheon, Stannis Baratheon, Renly Baratheon, Cersei Lannister, Balon Greyjoy, Euron Greyjoy, Viserys Targaryen, Daenerys Targaryen, Robb Stark, Jon Snow, and Mance Raider. 13 kings? Not bad. But we're talking about the best kings, so I won't waste your time talking about Joffrey, Viserys, Euron, Balon, and the Mad Queen Cersei. So we're left with 8. And let's take a closer look at them. Keep in mind, this is for the TV show. If I use the books, it's only when they're in line with the show. For example, Renly is different in the TV show and the books, so I will use the show. His big brother Robert is almost the same person. So with that said, let's get started with our first king, Robert Baratheon. Now at first glance, when he ruled the kingdom, it was at peace. And at second glance, he's a fat drunk.
What do you want?
In his core, I believe he doesn't really want to be king. He really enjoyed the fighting and the wars, but these were the only times he really felt alive. It's the only thing that really got his blood flowing. After that, he almost never felt truly alive. So he drinks, he keeps telling stories of the past. I mean, in his own head, he's still in the past.
She belonged with me. In my dreams, I kill him every night.
What was I saying?
Simpler time?
It was. You're too young to remember. Wasn't it simpler, tell me?
It was, Your Grace.
Back in our day, you weren't a real man until you'd fucked one girl from each of the 7 kingdoms and the Riverlands. Those were the days.
Which days?
Yes, it's been a long time. But I still remember every face.
He never attended councils, he spends way too much money, and he's just generally not a great ruler. But let's look at the positive things he did. He was respected in the 7 kingdoms, and well liked in many of the other places, which is important. Even if you claim he did this by mistake, he did make powerful allies. His best friend was Warden of the North, his hand was Warden in the East, his wife is the daughter of the Warden of the West, and partly thanks to Ned, he was on good terms with the Westerlands. Only with the Tyrells and Martells did he not have a strong alliance, but he was at peace and on okay terms with them. But at the end of the day, he was a good figurehead, who never really ruled the country. He didn't want to be king, and he never felt whole, which caused the drinking and the sleeping around and the excessive amounts of money that he spent.
I only know she was the one thing I ever wanted. Someone took her away from me. And 7 kingdoms couldn't fill the hole she left behind.
Then we have Robb. And I think Robb gets a bit too much flack. He was able to rally the North behind him, which was not an easy task at his age. He got some bad breaks with Theon, which I don't really blame him for, because he saw him as his brother, or Edmure going rogue, which in the books lost him the war and in the TV show weakened his position. But yeah, he did make mistakes, and he had too much of his father in him. He didn't want the crown. It weighed heavy on him. He didn't want the responsibility, and yes, he was a good leader and commander, but it's not the same as being king. Would he have been able to handle the politics? In my opinion, he would do about as well as his dad did. Maybe a bit better. He had better instincts in my opinion, and maybe because he was younger, he had more willingness to play the game. But he wasn't much better, if at all. More or less the same can be said for Jon. I don't see him wanting to be king, and it's my opinion that he'll be an even worse player in the Game of Thrones than his brother Robb. Though this could be argued, but either way, I don't see too much of a difference between them. Robb was groomed more to lead, but Jon inspired people probably better than Robb. Look, I know a lot of you really love Jon, but we're talking about show Jon. He doesn't really play politics very well, and if he would have found a way to get rid of Alistair, and even for you who think there's no way Sansa will betray him, he at least needed to be a bit more suspicious. Now, he might get better, but I can't go on what might be. He also might be really bad as king. I think he's not much better than Robb in that regard, if not maybe even a little worse. The next one will never be the best choice, but I think he deserves an honorable mention, and that's Mance Raider. He doesn't really know how to be king, but he managed to unite all the wildlings, and some talk different languages, and they're quite different, so this is an incredibly difficult task, and the way they looked up to him, the way they saw him as their king and respected him, even though they all knew he used to be a member of the Night's Watch, yeah, he's missing a lot of things. He doesn't really know how to lead an army that well, he doesn't know politics, he won't know how to manage things like money, and he did have the help of the White Walkers to unite the people, which helps, because it's much harder when everyone has different desires, like in the Seven Kingdoms, to unite people. Well, next is Tommen, which honestly is a worse version of Robert Baratheon. To his credit, he wants to be a good king and be involved, unlike Robert, but they're both only figureheads while others manage the country. So why is Tommen worse? Well, he doesn't have friends like Robert did. Robert did stand up for some things and could say no from time to time, and he was respected across the Seven Kingdoms. Between you and me, Margaery could have made Tommen do almost anything she wanted, and the same goes for Tywin or Cersei if Margaery wasn't there. And yes, this is partly because he's young, but I don't expect him to grow out a spine out of nowhere. Could he be a good king? Only if good people control him. So we're down to our last three, Dany, Stannis, and Renly. I'm going to start with Dany, and there's a line in the show which explains what she is.
You weren't made to sit on a chair in a palace.
What was I made for?
You're a conqueror, Daenerys Stormborn.
And right after that, she has her speech on Drogo, which only strengthens what he said. Look, Daenerys inspires people better than anyone in the show. She doesn't have the benefit of showing her might in battle like Robb and Jon, yet the people that follow her love her, and most of them have no connection to her before they meet. Even Tyrion, which I pointed out in this video, is devoted to her when they spend almost no time together. So she has a pretty good values as of now. She can inspire, she surrounds herself with the right people as it seems. Between Jorah, Barristan Selmy, and Tyrion, she has a pretty good track record. She knows how to take advice, which is also important, but she doesn't know how to be queen. Most of the good decisions she made were not really hers. Under her rule, Meereen suffered, unlike when Tyrion was in control. Also, I question her reasoning for wanting to be queen. Because my father was king is not a reason I accept. Tyrion asked her this himself.
There's more to the world than Westeros, after all. How many hundreds of thousands of lives have you changed for the better here? Perhaps this is where you belong, where you can do the most good.
I fought so that no child born into Slaver's Bay would ever know what it meant to be bought or sold. I will continue that fight here and beyond. But this is not my home.
All she said is she wants to go home, but Westeros isn't really her home. She was just sort of brainwashed by her brother that this is what they want and she doesn't know anything else. Okay, that's enough about Dany. Let's take a look at Renly. He's the hardest to measure up because we barely spend any time with him, but from what we know, he's the only one who wanted to be king for the right reasons. Now. I know some of you are going to say, did he just do those things to hide the fact that he wanted to be king? And you might be right, but let's take a look at what we do know for sure. He was a pretty good politician. He was part of the small council, and he could hold ground with the likes of Varys and Littlefinger. He was loved, he had a good reputation. From everything we know, there is a reason why the Stormlands chose him and not Stannis to follow. He looked to be the one with the most level head. This is in my opinion evident by the alliance he made with Robb, and it was a fair alliance. The people following him wanted him to be their king, so it's safe to assume he knows how to inspire. Maybe not as greatly as Dany and Jon, but still. On the downside, he's not a commander like his brothers, which is important in Westeros. We don't know him enough, so he could just say the right things but deep down have wanted power. It's possible. But enough about him. Let's move on to his big brother Stannis. First, he did not want to be king. He saw it as his duty, which is both good and bad. On one side, you want your ruler to want to do the job, and on the other hand, you don't want them to be in it for power. That makes them less likely to be corrupt. He was not loved, at all. Other than Davos, he didn't have a lot of devoted followers. To his credit, though, he does know politics better than Dany, Robb, or Jon. He was part of the small council and Lord of Dragonstone. But in my opinion, he's too hard, too rigid. You can't run a country like you run an army. They're just not the same. And the love of the people is important in my opinion, and they won't love him all that much. And, well, he killed his brother and daughter in a very dishonorable way because he was following the advice of fanatics. Now, he does deserve credit for knowing what the true threat was, and he did something about it. But as a person, his makeup, is he fit to be king? Let's take a step back for a second and look at everyone again. It's pretty obvious that the worst on that list is Tommen. I wouldn't want him to be classed president, much less king. The only good thing about him is that he wasn't sadistic like his brother. After him comes Robert, who had his benefits. He was loved and had the right friends, but as a man, he's a bad king. That's false. He just wasn't a king. It was Jon Arryn running the country. He just drank and, did whatever he felt like. Then comes Mance Raider, and as much as I appreciate him, he doesn't have the right mentality or tools, and if I had to guess, he lacked the will to run one kingdom, let alone 7. So we're left with 5, and like I said when I talked about them, Robb and Jon are on a similar level, and in my opinion, and if this is only me, I had to choose, I would choose Robb because of these reasons. He's a more proven commander in battle. I think he's a better judge of character, though this could be debated. And he's better prepared because his father prepared him to be Lord of Winterfell, and that has to count for something. But both are not really fit to be king for the same reason that their father Ned failed his hand. Now, I also wouldn't choose Dany because, well, like I said, she doesn't really know how to rule, and while it's good that she knows how to take advice, her instincts are wrong more often than not. Plus, I don't think she really wants to be queen. I think this is just what she thinks she wants. She might be a good queen in the end, and she does have potential. She's shown the ability to surround herself with the right people, and she lets them help her, and she does seem to stand for a lot of the right things. And she has the passion to do it, unlike Jon and Robb, who, if I had to guess, would turn down the role. But she's still not perfect. Now we're left with the loving brothers, Renly and Stannis, and I would ask, for what am I choosing? If I'm choosing for the in-universe world of Game of Thrones, I would choose Stannis, for the simple reason that he knows who the real threat is and is willing to act. But if you ask me who I would choose as a king in a vacuum, from everything I know about him, it'd be Renly. He seems to have the best reason for wanting to be king, he has the experience in politics, he's loved and smart, and he knows how to make alliances. I agree with him completely when he says,
"This isn't about the bloody line of succession. That didn't matter when you rebelled against the Mad King. It shouldn't matter now. What's best for the kingdoms? What's best for the people we rule? We all know what Stannis is. He inspires no love or loyalty. He's not a king. I am.
Stannis is a commander.
Yes, he's a good soldier. Everyone knows that. So is Robert. Tell me something. Do you still believe good soldiers make good kings?
And you guys can look at the leaders of your country. Were they all in the army? Would that even matter to you? Well guys, I hope you liked the video, and if you did, show us some love and click the like button. If you're new and you liked it, please subscribe. And if you really liked it, you can always follow us at @WatchersPod. And if you want to know if Jon is a warg in the show, or my thoughts about if Sansa will ever turn evil, go ahead and check out my other videos. Like always, hope you enjoyed the video, and have a great day.